Okay, well, we'll make a start in that case. Welcome everyone to this parallel session, Translating Europe Workshops, Translation and Data in Local Markets. My name is Paul KAYE. I work for DG Translation as a field officer in London, one of two in London. We have field officers across the member states of the EU. We're a bit like linguistic envoys sent here from the mothership in Brussels or Luxembourg to do outreach work, to be a linguistic contact point with the member states. We are, for the most part, translators, working in the different language departments in DG Translation, who are then sent out on secondments of up to 5, sometimes 6 years in the member states. I've been in London since May 2014, and my posting comes to an end on the 29th of March next year. You can probably imagine why that is. I'm going to introduce my colleagues shortly. In fact, I'll do it now. We're going to hear from 3 of my colleagues who are in the different field offices in the order that they're going to speak. So Krzysztof NALEPA, who's from the Warsaw field office. We decided to go geographically from north to south. Krzysztof is in the Warsaw field office. Jan FABER, who's in the Prague field office, and Katia CASTELLANI, who is in the Rome field office. We also have, there are several field officers from around the member states who are at the conference, but at least one other is here. Lena Olofsson Piras, who's from she's the most northerly, she's in the Stockholm field office. And Lena is going to act as rapporteur for the session. So, yes, the field officers that are sent by DG Translation out to, in fact, 26 member states. We don't have any in Brussels or Luxembourg because their functions are carried out by staff who are based in the offices in those 2 countries. And our job is to do various kinds of outreach work, and it varies depending on the member states and the local context, but many of them still do a lot of translation and, what's the word that's on the tip of my tongue? Localization work. I had to struggle for that because I don't do any localization work in London because everything's produced in English, so I don't do any translation. I haven't done any for the last 4 years. In our office. And so depending on which office we end up working in, we do various things. But part of the core business of all of us is to deliver some of DG Translation's outreach programs in our member states. So things like the Jóvenes Translatores Young Translator of the Year competition, which takes place in all of the member states. The European Masters in Translation program, but also Translating Europe, which is why we're here today. So Translating Europe, as you know, it's DG Translation's, the European Commission's, and I suppose the European Union's program of outreach to the wider translation sector. The idea to bring together different parts of the sector to work collaboratively where we can do it. And that consists of a big national forum every year. I don't know if you've heard of it. Try to get there one time. It's very good. That takes place here. But actually the bulk of it is national events. So we have the forum here, but we also have a series of national workshops which take place throughout all of them now. Translating Europe started in 2014 as an outreach program. In that year we had 7 national workshops. I'm pleased to say 2 of them were in London. But since then, we've had over 120 of these national workshops. We call them workshops, which gives you the sense of something being practical and hands-on. In fact, it's been a slightly contentious name for them because that word workshop covers a wide variety of different kinds of events that we organize at the national level. They can be conferences, they can be seminars, they can be workshops. What we want to do in this session is to give you a flavour of the national workshops as they take place, and we're going to hear about 3 of them. And we also want to hear from you about what you want to see in them, how in your context, in your position, they might help you to do your work, to increase your collaboration with others. So we're going to hear from the 3 colleagues about them. Before that, I just wanted to do a show of hands. How many people have taken part, or raise your hand if you have taken part as a spectator, if you like, in a national workshop, a Translating Europe national workshop, if you've been to any of our events at national level. Okay. Not too many, actually. I thought there might be more than that. Put your hand up if you have been a speaker at, so a more active participant speaking at one of our events. Okay, good. So maybe there's not as many as we expected. So maybe you're going to learn something from this session. Perhaps that's why you actually turned up, isn't it? Of course. You wanted to find out about them. Okay, so I'm going to pass on to my colleagues. The way we're going to do this, I'm going to ask them to speak about a recent Translating Europe national workshop that they organised in their member state. All of them relate generally to the theme of the forum over these couple of days. After they've done that introduction, I might ask them a question or two. We'll then have a discussion among ourselves a little bit. And then as soon as we can, we'll throw it open to questions from you. If you've got any questions you want to ask of them, how it went. And then if you want to suggest things for your member state, if you want to see something happen in your member state. We don't have a field officer from every member state here, but Lena, who's taking down the proceedings, if you say that you'd like to see something happening in your member state, we can pass that on to our colleagues who deal with it. You can also contact them directly. If you look on the back of your program, you'll find that there is a list of contact email addresses for our field offices in each of the member states, so you can do that. If you want to talk to us afterwards, we have a little table just out on this floor where there should be one of us at any particular point that you can talk to us about the national workshops. And there you can also get a copy of this little brochure, which is just a list of the national workshops under Translating Europe that are happening just in the next couple of months. So there's a summary there. And my next one is in 2 days in London, if you happen to be there, directly after this event. Okay, so I'm going to pass first of all over to Krzysztof, who's going to talk to us for a couple of minutes about a recent event that he organized in Poland.
Okay. First, I want to refer to the photo behind me. I've just noticed that I look depressed on it. It's not the whole truth about me. A recent event was not so recent. It took place in May this year, and mind you, it was the first conference I have ever organized in my life, because I started my work as a field officer only in January, and it was a huge conference for my standards, with more than 150 participants, lots of speakers, international speakers. We had the pleasure to have Lucas with us, who gave a wonderful presentation. And the general idea, I could talk for an hour about it, but I want to share this time with my colleagues. The general idea behind this conference was to show what it means to be a translator today in the context of modern technologies, CAD tools, machine translation. So on the one hand, we discussed these modern tools, we discussed machine translation, how it works and how it affects translators. But on the other hand, we looked at the particular roles that translators take today with various subcategories, like revisers, like post-editors, like software localizers, like quality managers. We also discussed issues related to the training of translators for these new requirements. And very relevantly for this forum, we had an interesting component regarding legal issues with handling translation memories and machine translation. And the presentation was given by Wojciech Wołosik, who happens to be giving a presentation right now. in the other room. That was day one, but it was a two-day event. Day two had a purely practical nature. These were workshops that were supposed to teach very particular skills for people who are interested in acquiring those skills. So it was about how to do post-editing, how to localize video games, how to translate text for European Commission, how to operate a specific CAD tool, or even how to do translation business and sell translations in the Polish market. Because it's an important feature that Translating Europe workshops are very much positioned into local markets. We had two separate parts. We did it intentionally, purposefully. We wanted two different audiences to come, but we also wished that those audiences would mix, and we managed to achieve it. Actually, students and practically minded translators who were interested in day two somehow chose, or some of them chose, to visit the academic part, and some of the academics, including speakers, decided to learn some practical skills and visited day two. Maybe I stop at that, not to take too much time.
Who were your partners, particularly in the practical part, the second day? Who were you working with to put those on?
Okay. Yeah, mostly these were representatives of the market. We have, as I remember, 3 or 4 of them represented translation agencies that specialized in certain areas. For example, one of them showed some tricks regarding one of the CAD tool. We had an agency that does a lot of translation for the European Commission, and they showed us what to pay attention to when doing jobs for the Commission. We had again a translation agency representative who told students about this marketing side. So mostly these were market partners. Yeah,
And how did you spread the word? How did you get people in? You said you had a big audience. How did you select that audience? How did you get through to them?
Okay. Well, the promotion was done through websites, Facebook, and through university channels. And it really didn't take much effort to attract people. Registration was filled quite quickly. We had absolutely no problem with that. The translation market in Poland is very vivid, and there's a lot of interest in it. We were very happy to see so much interest.
Okay, thanks for that, Krzysztof. I've got more questions, but we'll move on to Jan and then Katia, and then we'll come back to those maybe. So, Jan, can you tell us what you did recently? How about you use this one, see if that works. I can't hear you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Now it's better. Thank you. Yeah, my workshop in Prague was very recent. It took place as part of celebration of St. Jerome's Day, which is the biggest festival of translation and interpreting in the Czech Republic. And it celebrates the patron saint of the translators, as you know, the most famous, the first of the big translators, and also author of the oldest alleged mistranslation. As you might know, he gave Moses the horns. And we celebrate International Day of Translation on the day of his death, on the 30th of September. But us in Czech Republic, we celebrate St. Jerome's Day in the during first weekend of November. So it took place last year. We, DGT, co-organizes this event with one of the biggest professional organizations for translators in the Czech Republic, which is Translators and Interpreters Union. And this year it was 24th edition already of St. Jerome's Days. DGT has been present for last few years, and every year we try to follow the topic of the Translating Europe Forum here. So also this year the topic of the part of St. Jerome's Days, which are organized over Friday and Saturday, Friday being organized by DGT. So this year's program on Friday, the title was Rise of the Machines, How to Get the Most of the Data. Also in previous years, the topics were what is the future of translators' occupation, or electronic tools in translation profession. So we are really trying to be to follow the current trends. As I mentioned, we organize this event with the Union of Translators and Interpreters, but also maybe I mentioned the situation on the Czech market. There are 5 associations actually who somehow organize translators. This is the Union of Interpreters and Translators, which has about 800 members out of some approximately 15,000 freelance translators on the Czech market. Then there is Union for Literary Translation, the Literary Translators Guild, Association of Certified Court Translators, Association of Conference Interpreters, and then finally, okay, yeah, sorry, and quite recently an agency, organization of translation agencies was formed 7 years ago, representing 7 major translation agencies. So we organize this event with all of them. So we have audience from freelance translators, from the agencies, we have interpreters, we have translators, we have literary translators. We also work with academia. We work with the Charles University, the Institute of Translation, which is actually the only EMT university in the Czech Republic. And if I see well, we have Professor Svoboda, who has been working with us for several years now. And I think that one of his students, Kateřina Středová, will present her poster on a term basis on Friday at 1 o'clock. So we really work closely with academia. And while Krzysztof's workshop was more practical, our Friday part is more theoretical. This year we had guests from Poland, from the University of Warsaw and Krakow, talking about humans and data in translation, about topic of how to use data in translation. And also we had our own DGT e-translation business manager, Daniel Prů, who presented the newest machine translation developed and used in Commission, the e-translation neural machine translation. And at the end of the day, we had a panel where representatives of language industry, freelance translators, and translator working for the agency were represented, and they discussed the use of machine translation, to what extent they use it. Then the second day was a little bit more diverse and was more organized by the individual associations, but still we can see the overflow of the general Translating Europe Forum topic into the second day. There was a presentation on the new trends in machine translation and development of CAD tools, given by the biggest producer of dictionaries and also guidebooks, which they developed their own machine translation and gave it really raised quite vivid interest. Well, as I said, we had really very varied audience. We have also literary translators who reacted very well in a very negative way. Machine translation for them is I was waiting that they will grab their big voluminous dictionaries and they will try to break the machines, but this is one of the things I think is not discussed at all. What is the position of literary translation, well, face to face to machine translation? One of the Saturday's contributions was given by a big publisher who claimed that in 25-30 years we won't need literary translators because the translation will be done by the machines. But maybe it's too much, or can I?
Let's say that, and then maybe some other things will come out in the discussion. But can I ask you, all those organisations that you managed to bring together, including some relatively new ones, is that an added value of the Translating Europe workshop? Is that something that might have happened anyway without your involvement, or do you think it catalysed that meeting?
The St. Jerome's Days have been there for some 20 years before we came, so they work together quite well. There are, of course, some animosities between certain people, but maybe presence of DGT worked as catalyst. Maybe we created some neutral platform where people can meet without really showing attitude each other, but the Union of Translators and Interpreters was very helpful. They were trying to bring all the parts of the spectrum together already before.
Yeah, I think that neutral space is something that I certainly recognise has happened in London with some of our events. Let's hear from Katia about what she's been doing in Italy, and also maybe a bit later beyond. I've been talking about national workshops. Actually, some of our workshops are transnational. We can perhaps bring that out at some point. Katia travelled from Rome yesterday despite a heavy cold, so thanks for being here. But also, if her voice gives out halfway through the session, you'll understand why. Over to you, Katia.
Okay, thank you very much. I was going to say that this is not my voice, this is the voice of the virus which inhabits me right now. So I'm sorry about it. And also a disclaimer, if you wake up tomorrow morning with a cold, don't blame it on me, okay? I'm keeping the safe distance. So having said that, this year, I must say that in Italy we've been quite prolific in terms of Translating Europe workshops, because we have organized 5. 4 have already taken place, and the 5th one is going to take place next week, and it is going to be a transnational workshop organized together with the colleagues in Zagreb and in Ljubljana. But the workshop I'm going to talk about today was organized in May in Rome. It was called How to Harness Translation Tools to Maximize Efficiency and Accuracy. And it was organized together with one of the 4 EMT universities we have in Italy. So this was UNINT University in Rome. It was a couple of teachers there who had the idea of the workshop, so I would like to thank them for bringing this topic up. And what was peculiar about this workshop? This was a real workshop that is a hands-on thing. So we had 3 sessions. We had a first session on the first day in the morning with some presentations. And the nice thing about these presentations was that there were the researchers taking part, so the university, the academia. There were professionals. We had, for instance, one of my DGT colleagues who, apart from being a translator, is also an expert in CAT tools. And we had the industry. So we had representatives of SDL, of TEWs, of FBK. Why do I mention them? Because they were there not just to give a presentation, but they provided us with a set of tools which we used in the second session in the afternoon for our practical exercise. So how was it organized? We were in a couple of computer rooms and we tried to recreate a real translation environment. So the students and professionals who were there and who participated in the exercise had a PC at their disposal. They had a real material to translate. What do I mean by real material? I mean that we contacted a company in Rome which was available to give us a text taken from their communication material. So it was actually a description of two of their products. This is a company which produces software. So it was a description of the product for the general public, but still a technical thing. So there was this double component. It was a translation made to be for communication purposes, but talking about a specific topic. So each person had the possibility to create the translation project because on the PC they all had Studio 2017, so they could create the translation project and they could choose what to add to the project. So we had created a folder where they could find a translation memory, which was created based on previous translations on this topic. Then they had a multi-term base, which we created from Microsoft Glossary. We chose that because we were dealing about software. And then they had 3 machine translation engines to choose from. So they could choose whether to translate using DeepL, which is a free neural machine translation, Microsoft Statistical Machine Translation, or Modern MT, which is an open source adaptive neural machine translation. So the interesting thing was that the exercise was useful both to students who maybe for the first time, the majority of them, could use machine translation engines. I mean, all students had already used Studio, so they already knew how to use translation memories, but not machine translation. So that was their chance to use it, but also for professionals. I mean, like myself, I took part in the exercise. I am used to using our, that is the Commission machine translation, but I tried out another one, and it was very different, of course. So each person participating really had the opportunity of testing something new. And we also had an additional tool. We had a translation quality evaluation tool, which is called DQF. So if we wanted to use it, at the end, we could also run this other tool. So at the end of this exercise, we distributed a questionnaire to all the participants, asking, questions like, well, of course, which machine translation engine did you use, and how useful were the proposed segments? Do you think that your productivity was improved? Are you satisfied with the quality you obtained? So what happened on the next day? The next morning there was the 3rd session. So the company which had provided the texts chose some samples during the evening and they revised them. So the next morning, they arrived there with the revised samples, and we discussed, the results together. So they said, okay, we noticed that there was these recurrent mistakes. I forgot to say that the company also provided some translation guidelines. So this term has to remain in English, or this is how we usually deal with this specific issue. So we could already have an idea. So we had this discussion first on the texts, and then on the results of the questionnaire, and then we opened the debate to see, the people who participated and also those who didn't participate but who were there, how they felt. And I must say that everybody was really satisfied, because first, for once, we were not just talking about machine translation, we were using machine translation. So one thing is to talk about, this item, you don't really know how it works, and another thing is try it out and then talk about it. And everyone had its lesson to learn. Also, the companies participating was really satisfied, because, you have a feeling what people think about your products. And so everybody was happy, and I would really advise my colleagues to try and repeat this kind of workshop.
Thanks, Katia. It sounds like a great event. How big was your venue? How many people did you have to turn away? It sounds like something that a lot of people would have wanted to go to. I mean, those kind of organizational details. Who did you open it to, and did you have to turn people away?
Well, it was organized at the university, so I must say that the majority of attendees were students, but we also had, as I said, some professionals, and, well, to tell the truth, in Rome there are so many things going on that usually it is difficult to attract people to events. So in this case, the number of participants varied between the 3 sessions. In the morning we had around 80 people following, then the practical exercise we had 40 people participating, and the next day another 80 people. So also because, students cannot really follow 1.5 day workshop. They have lessons in between, so it was an audience which was coming and going, but still, I mean, of course, to replicate it, you need the hardware and the software. That's, of course, something that you have to take into consideration.
Okay, thanks, Katia. Right, so now I'm going to ask the panelists if they want to pick up on something that one of the others have said, and whether it resonates with something they've experienced, or if they've got a query about it. So,
if I may.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I would like to refer to I think, all of my colleagues' short presentations, because one thing is in common, that all the events gathered various actors of our translation community, and this is also the experience I had from my own workshop. I told you that I haven't organized a conference before. Now I can tell you, I have not attended a translation conference before. I thought, I may say it, that there is no value in it. And it took for me to organize a conference to understand the real value. And the first thing that comes to mind is this consolidation aspect. We translators, we form a community. We are like a family. But it is a family that does not live together. It's dispersed. We have academia, universities who do wonderful jobs. We have freelance translators who are themselves like islands. We have translation experts. We have translation companies, students. All of them go their own path. And such events is a wonderful opportunity to have this like family reunion. You I could see for the first time how precious it is to see all these various actors, to exchange experience, to share the news like it happens with family. I couldn't believe how much I learned and what an exciting experience it was. So, considering that not so many of you have attended a Translating Europe workshop, I would like to encourage you very strongly to look for an event in your home country, visit it, attend it. You will see the real value of it.
Or suggest one and contact our field officer in your country and suggest one that you want. And we'll get onto that in a while. I'll just see if Jan and Katia want to add anything, and then we will come to the audience.
I can only confirm what Krzysztof just said. It's really a very nice experience because you meet translators of all different trades. You meet people who translate films, you meet interpreters, you meet people who translate into sign language. It's really very varied and it's very enriching. About the audience, this is one practical thing. We are trying to think how to get into the regions because, of course, organizing those events in the capital, you get your usual crowd, but what about people living 400 kilometers away? And we tried, and as translators, they spend so much time at their computers, they just tuned in for our really very rudimentary Facebook live stream. And even though this was a pilot year and we only promoted it 2 days before the event, we got 500 views. So this is really something I think that helps to attract the audience. And also, Katia, I will talk to you about the details of your event because this year there was like a red thread, this question, what about the productivity? Is the machine translation helping us, or is it so bad that by editing it we just spend so much time and still there will be some mistakes left because we were given some structure? So we came with the idea to organize for the next year something which is in part inspired by Alfred Jarry's Supermail, a deathmatch between man and the machine. So we would like to take 2 translators together. One of them would translate using machine translation, and the other one would translate without machine translation. We of course have to choose the text, the translators. There are many possible bottlenecks, and we want to project it live on 2 projectors with live audience, and we would like to stream this as well. And in the evening there would be the presentation of the results and the mistakes which were made by the human and by the machine. So maybe next year I will be able to answer the question, what about productivity? What is more productive?
Did you say a death match? I heard the phrase death match.
Match, pardon.
Just match, sorry. No, sorry. Katia.
Yes, of course, for this particular workshop, we could not use web streaming because it didn't make much sense. I mean, just for the first session maybe. But in fact, for the other workshops, when it is possible, we prefer to use the web streaming because, of course, as you correctly said, it is not possible for everybody to just come to where the workshop is, even if we try to organize them not always in the same place. But like last week, we did another workshop in Rome, in another university, about creativity connected to translation tools. So is there any creativity left for translators? And we had really a lot of viewers following on the web streaming. So this is definitely a tool which is worth using.
Okay, thanks, Katia. Right, I'm going to open it now to the audience. Does anybody have any questions or comments in response to anything our colleagues have said, or any suggestions for things that you would like to see in your home country? Over there, we'll take the lady on the left first of all, my left. Could you introduce yourself?
Hi, sure. I'm Karen Henry, originally from Jamaica, but I'm here working at the ACP Secretariat as the reviser for the English translation team. My questions are really for Katia about the tools. I like the sound of your workshop. It sounds very good, very hands-on, and so on. You mentioned Microsoft Glossary to create the TM. Is that what you said? Yes?
No. That is, the translation memory was created. Touch the microphone or so the translation memory was created by aligning previous translations, whereas the Microsoft Glossary was created to be used as term base. So if you wish, in Studio you can upload also a term base. So we created a term base based on that.
Thanks. The other, you mentioned, I think you said DQF for quality assessment, was that it? Okay, is that free? Is that through Trados? How do you get that?
No, this is a product developed by TEWs. So I think that for the moment they do not have a free version of it. So they kindly let us use it for that occasion because they were there, so they presented the tool, and so we had the opportunity of testing it as well.
Yes, hi, my name is Alexander Bondarenko and I represent Ukraine, both as industry company representative and university representative. So my question is about academia and industry cooperation. I actually visited a couple of workshops and it turned out that in face-to-face talk between industry and academia, I pretty often heard such an idea from academia representatives that, well, all this technology and all these things are pretty good, but we have our courses that we have to develop every semester, curriculum, we have articles that should be written every semester, so we don't have time for technology and actually watching face-to-face with the industry. So the question is, what are the obstacles that prevent industry and academia see each other face-to-face, and what can we do to actually improve the situation? Thank you.
You mean the obstacles to industry and academia coming together to talk to each other?
Yes.
Any of the panelists like to address that? I mean, I could say in the UK, I only know about the workshops that we've put on in the UK, and we've not found it difficult at all to get those parts, industry, academia together, and we've got them all together in one room in a couple of days in London. But anybody else want to say anything?
Maybe a word or two. The problem you're referring to is there, but I think the situation is improving. From what I see, the universities realize more and more the need to cooperate strongly with the industry. They are also inspired to do so by the so-called EMT project. I think you know what I mean, which requires them to use technology and to use them practically. So this kind of fills this gap. But I'm not saying that the problem does not exist. It's a very interesting thing, because the thing regarding theory of translation and the practice of translation. I think a whole conference could be organized to discuss this. But it's changing for better from what I see in Poland.
If I may just add something, I mean, the situation in Italy is that right now the great majority of masters in translation do offer training in how to use translation tools. Machine translation maybe not that much so far, but of course, you know, the university is always a bit late because, as you say, they have their times and the situation on the market changes so quickly that it is difficult, you know, for them to pick up. But still, there is the will on their part to train professionals who then can find a job.
We had a question, I think, a lady over there, yes, and then the lady to my left.
Thank you. My name is Claudia from the University of Vienna. I'm a master's student. I have two small appreciations for the workshop which happened in Italy. The Microsoft Templates is available for everyone on internet, so it's very easy to convert it and then import it into multi-term. And the DQF metrics are not available as such, but the MQM, multidimensional quality metrics, also cover the DQF, and these are available for everybody. So it would be very easily to replicate the same situation. And my question was, if you work together with companies for these workshops, which kind of companies are you looking for? Are they in the European Association of Translation Companies? Are you trying to look for representative companies of the market in a specific country, or how do you select those companies? Thank you.
I don't think we've been so prescriptive on that score, but I wonder what my colleagues have to say about that.
Personally, we do not have any particular restrictions, so it depends a lot on the contacts that the partners with whom we organize the workshops have. So in this particular case, one of the teachers of this university had a lot of personal contacts because she had worked as freelance translators for many years. So, you know, sometimes personally I rely on other people's contacts to enlarge my network, or sometimes if they do not have these contacts, then also through the unions of language service providers on the country, we can find the most suitable speakers for the different events.
I can only confirm it works the same in Poland. We look for specialists. We don't look for any particular associations. We look for people who can provide the kind of presentation that we need, that are known for in the market to be specialized in a particular area. Like we looked for somebody who knows a lot about post-editing for our particular conference, and we found a person. The name of the company does not matter really. It could be any, provided that that the person is suitable for our purpose.
As our workshop is more theoretical, we maybe make it more practical in the next years. The scheme is very, very simple. We always try to provide somebody from DGT, then somebody from academia, and then involve somebody from the industry. So we really don't have any companies which we would prefer or any universities. We always look around based on the Translating Europe Forum topic for the given year.
Okay, thanks. There's a lady there.
Yes, hello, Mary-Louise Jackson. I'm based in London. Paul, I can't see you, but thank you very much for all the work you do in London. I have been translating for years and I'm looking to do more machine translation work. I've been working with a company which provides a machine translation, which I feel I would like to improve. Are there any tools that are at our disposal in London? And is there any training that is available for existing translators in London to come down and have not so much a theoretical presentation, but some very hands-on help?
Maybe that's our next Translating Europe workshop in London, if we can get one in before the end of March next year. I think the professional associations, from memory, pardon the pun, have put on things like that individually. I'm pretty sure I've seen them putting on events along those lines that may be restricted to members of those organisations. But it's something we could look at doing as a Translating Europe workshop. Yeah. Let's talk afterwards. Two more hands. This first one.
Hello, thank you very much for the very interesting presentation. I have two questions for you. First of all, I'm from I work for a public sector organization in the Netherlands. My first question is relevant to the workshops that you've done. Do you think in the near future or the mid-future there will be more room for revisers or terminologists as the fast pace of the machine translation progress rather than for translators? And for the second question, since, as I said, I work for a public sector organization, I would like to know whether it is possible to organize workshops for these organizations where we rely heavily on human translation and revision rather than technology. So I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Colleagues, have you thought about putting on Translating Europe national workshops geared towards that kind of activity?
I haven't thought about it, but it's a great idea. It's a great inspiration. Thank you very much for that.
In the workshops I organize, I usually invite translators from Italian public bodies because I was told by them that in fact they do not use much translation tools and not at all machine translation, so they are really interested in starting knowing about it. So I usually invite them and I see that they come, and so apart from that, there is this project, another DGT project, which is called ELRC. I don't know if we should mention it, which is a project where we invite public administrations to share their corpora in order to feed our machine translation so that then we can give it for free to them to use, and it matches more their type of texts than like ours. So this is a project going on. We are running workshops all over EU countries on that. So that's another way to raise awareness in public institutions about translation technology. And as for your other question, I don't think that there will be more need for one profession and less for another. But it is true that, for instance, in Italy, I have noticed, talking to representatives of language service providers, that lately there are many companies asking for terminological work. So they are approached to organize terminology projects. Because there are companies acquiring other companies and they wish to harmonize their terminology. There are different cases, and so also terminology is, in any case, a field which is growing in parallel to translation.
Okay, there was another hand at the back there. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Bert Keurentjes. I head up the translation departments of two university language centers in the Netherlands. I gather that the field officers are quite autonomous when it comes to the number and the nature of the workshops, and also about how they go about publicizing these workshops. I was wondering, do you share best practices and tips amongst each other, especially in the with regard to the latter, to publicizing your events?
Who wants to take that?
As sometimes it's language specific, it's really difficult. Well, we haven't, I mean, in Prague, tried to promote our event specifically through our field office colleagues in the remaining 24 countries. But we do share best practices. We have regular video conferences, and also we meet once a year at the general meeting, and Translating Europe workshop is always one of the sessions. There is one session on Translating Europe workshop, and the good practice is always presented there.
Yeah, once a year all the 26 or more field officers from the 26 member states come together for 3 days where we discuss how we're all tackling these common projects, and that's where we share the practice there. We've got a minute left. We might have room for one very last question. The first hand I saw. If you make it very brief, please, and we'll make it brief in return.
My name is Okay, my name is Kyriaki Kourouni, Aristotle University of Thessaloniki in Greece. My question is, what about funding?
Good point.
That's always our question too. We've got colleagues sitting on our right-hand side who we have budgets to put on these things. Maybe I should say no more than that. But we have budget to put them on, obviously. Yeah, and we make funding requests for each of our individual Translating Europe workshops, and obviously that budget is constrained. Are you asking me for a figure? I actually don't know.
No, not about a figure, no. But I'll talk to you after the break.
Okay, just to remind you, if you want to get in touch with your local DG Translation Field Officer, email address is on the back of your program. We'll be outside at the stand there.